Hi guys, Jagelsdorf here. Sorry for the somewhat disheveled look, but my iron just died and I have no easy way of replacing it as we are under a nationwide state of partial lockdown, so all non-essential businesses have been closed. I will have to order one through Amazon or whatever. Anyway, let's not talk about the outbreak. There are enough other people that do this. Let's talk about something crucial to our terrain crafting ways, and namely recycling and upcycling. As you might not know, I'm a big fan of curry. I eat curry regularly, so I'm always in the need of buying lots of the spice. And recently I found some jars of curry on a discount in the shop, so I immediately bought 4 of them, of course. Emptied them into a bigger jar that I keep my spices in, and I was left with these jars, and they had kind of an interesting shape, and I wanted to make something with them, not just throw them away, because that's wasteful, and I try not to be a wasteful person. I was thinking about it, and then I saw our national monument in the news. And kind of thought, what if? So anyway, if you want to see how to make an ornamental gate or a sort of the Arc of Triumph out of spice jars, keep on watching. So once again, I decided to start the build with planning things somewhat more exactly, as the thing was supposed to match nicely with my existing roads. And yeah, I made the pro move of tripping the camera. Anyway, my roads are about 7.5 centimeter wide, so I needed the columns to be 7.5 centimeter apart. And then the rest of the things would just need to somehow fit so that it looks proportional. And I wanted there to be a top part with kind of 2 steps to it and a sculpture on top to give it this, real classical look. And these are the jars that we are going to work with. I have 4 of them, so I'll be making 2 gates. Now the next thing was to actually measure the 7.5 centimeters simply with my cutting board, and deciding where do I want the 7.5 centimeter to be, because as I experience in this place, 7.5 centimeter in the middle makes the whole gate really wide and looking quite unnatural. So I decided that there will be part of the cap that will be cut away so that I can put the entire gate on top of the road, so to say. And here I'm trying out some cuts for the top. My first idea was to make it out of cardboard, but I quickly decided it wasn't a great idea. And also I quickly realized that I've cut the piece way too small. So on my next try I will definitely correct this. Anyway, I decided that for something as heavy as glass I'm going to need something somewhat more sturdy. So I used the HDF, cut 2 strips out of it and glued it to cardboard to give it some more height. And I glued a few layers. I glued 2 layers on one side and 1 layer on the other side of the MDF. On one hand to reduce the warping and also give it some mass and height. And here you can see 1 layer on top, 2 on the bottom, or I'm going to do it the other round. 1 layer on the bottom, 2 layers on the top. And now we have to cut the lids a little bit. This is what I told you before. This will be the border that we will be putting over the roads that I made before. And I'm again measuring the distance so that I can glue the top part accurately. And as you see, it fits really nice. So I'm marking the places where the columns should be with a marker, and I will be cutting into the cardboard on one part for stability so that there is more contact with the glass so that it holds better, and also to better blend the jars with the top part together, so that there isn't a sharp angle between the glass and the bar, and so that it doesn't look artificial. and cutting it out couldn't be easier. Simply do it with a sharp knife and it's no problem. And I will be gluing the glass jars with hot glue. Something like epoxy resin would probably be better, but after it's all glued together and painted, it holds quite nicely. I had some problems on the way there, so to say, but in the end I managed to keep it all together. And you know, simply do it on both sides, on both gates, press it down and it will hold very well. Now I don't have the roads over here, so I can't really compare it, but I was pretty sure that they were a little bit taller than the tiny lid on these jars. So I found some scrap particle board, you know, like cardboard on the back of the block, and glue it together 3 layers high to give some more height to my columns so that I can cut away the place where the road is going to go. And I'm gluing this cardstock, this particle board, simply with hot glue to the lid. It should bond very well. PVA wouldn't work here because PVA doesn't stick to plastic, as we have already found out in my cathedral build. If you didn't see that, click in the top right corner. And to spare me some time, I'm first gluing on the entire block to it and then cutting away in vivo, so to say, at the column. It makes it all much easier and you can very neatly clean them up with a really sharp knife, as you see right now. Now, a short intermission. There's one thing that I kind of forgot about that's really important, and mainly that the lids, you know, they are screwed on. So I quickly took some super glue and glued them in place. So that's how it looks right now. And as you see, the top is really flat and uninteresting, and it looks really unnatural, it being so thin. So the next step will be to give it some more mass. And for this we're going to need some corrugated cardboard. Sadly, I don't have any, you know, just corrugated cardboard, so I'll be using some packaging that I'm going to clean up a little bit. And it couldn't be easier. Simply pry one piece with like a needle or a pen or whatever, and start pulling it to separate it from the corrugations. At the end you'll need to clean it up a little bit, but you can end up with some really nice corrugated cardboard this way, and it's really easy. Now I want to have this step on top of our arch, of our gate, so I'm going to glue this corrugation vertical so that it has, you know, like a nice pattern to it, a little bit more interesting, to implicate, you know, something more complicated. And during filming of this video I made my special move of tilting the camera very often, so yeah, don't forget to do this, it's the crucial step. Anyway, for gluing the cardboard on top, I recommend to go really slowly so that the hot glue has time to cool down and set, so that you can make it as exact as you possibly can. But the world won't end if it's a little bit wonky, as it is with me, as you see right now. But I will try to straighten it up a little bit, glue it in a few additional places. Now we need to glue a piece of cardboard that's going to close the whole structure. I also glued a little scrap piece of particle board inside to give it more stability. Again, simply hot glue, and I'm putting it on a piece of cardboard that I'm going to also cut on top, because it's much easier to do and gives you a little bit more room to improvise if you want to make it a little bit different than initially planned. Yeah, and I'm really happy with how it looks. It has this Roman look and it can be only improved upon. Now the columns themselves, they have a really interesting pattern on top, you know, looks a little bit dwarven to be honest, and the bottom with the lids also looks cool, but the middle I decided is somewhat plain and boring. So I decided to glue some cardboard strips just to give, you know, some more edges for the dry brush to stick on, just to make it look a little bit nicer. And I am doing it only on this one gate because on the other I wanted to try some other things. But I tried to line these strips up with the pattern on top of the jar, and I think it came out quite cool. So now let's take care of the top. Sadly, I don't have very many miniatures at the moment to put as a sculpture on top, so I found these oathmark dwarves, which will look quite nice. And I decided that I want my sculptures to be somewhat ruined, partially because I don't have a very nice regal looking thing. So if I cut off the head and the arm, it may not look like a dwarf, but something more serious. And for the pedestal to put the miniature on, I'm simply using a lid of a pop bottle, and I will later glue it on top, but for now I'm simply dry fitting it. Now just the sculpture over there looks a little bit, boring or lonely, but I found out that I have this interesting Turkish pasta that can really bring this special something to the build, give it a little bit more things for the paint to stick on. So after I dry fit it all, I will be using hot glue to glue in our miniature, our sculpture, and then the pieces of pasta in 4 corners. And you can really use anything. You can use beads, but I don't have any beads. You can use some bits, but I don't have any particularly interesting bits. So I used pasta. And now to give it all a little bit more of a stony look and to blend all the things together and to hide all the cardboard edges, I'm covering most of it in spackle. Now, before painting, I covered it all in a mixture of PVA glue and black paint, just to make it a little bit more sturdy, and then base coated it all in black, of course. Now, this gate I wanted to be, kind of this standard gray, so I did a very heavy overbrush of my anthracite gray on it, and it took quite some time until I decided that it looks just as I wanted to. And the next step was making some white highlights, and usually I would be done at this point with the painting, but this gate is mostly stone and there isn't much else to it. So I was thinking how to make it a little bit more interesting. So I thought a little splash of color might do the deal. So I mixed some tan and used a sponge, a kitchen sponge, to put some additional splotches of color, and then used even lighter tan to dry brush instead of the regular plain white. And although it's not perfect, I think I'm rather happy with this paintwork. The other one I did in a very similar way, only using more of browns and yellows to give it a more sandstone look, and as you see, instead of the strips I made a little Skaven symbol. Now for the sculptures, I wanted them to be bronze, so bronze always is covered in this very nice patina, especially on old sculptures. So I simply used Elemental Bold from Army Painter that gives you the perfect color. And I'm also going to show you how I painted the little Skaven accent on the other gate. I used a dark green as a base coat for the symbol and a reddish brown for the rope. And I will be then doing some line work with the same green mixed with some yellow to make this lime color, and just outlined the symbol. And then again, to give the rope some highlights, I'm using a tan color. I think it's Desert Yellow from Army Painter, but I'm not sure anymore. And the very last step is putting some foliage. I didn't want to go overboard, so I just used some moss to make these hanging vines. And that's how they look in all their glory. It's a really nice and easy project for everyone. So yeah, that's both of them. There were definitely some things that I would do different. For example, I didn't spray them with a primer, which I definitely should do, because the paint doesn't really stick well to the glass jars. So using a primer would be much better. And also, I don't show this in a video, but securing the jars to the top part was really difficult. Mostly because I glued them with hot glue, which held okay when it's standing and you don't move it around too much. But when you are handling it and painting or gluing stuff on, there's a lot of stress on this place. So using something like a 2-part epoxy glue might be better. And what really helped was securing it with the spackle. This gave it kind of a rigidity and really held things in place. So yeah, it's a really easy and simple, quick build. You can really do this in an afternoon if you're quick. And I think it can really nicely tie a table together, give a, you can make some sort of a more regal official area with it. And as always, I think about the practical aspects. That's why the tops are flat, so that you can climb and place miniatures on it. Mordheim is a very vertical game, so is Frostgrave. And there's one thing that I wish I could have tested, how the spacings work out for the roads. But sadly, as I already said, we are under a partial lockdown right here, and all of my terrain is at my parents' house in another country 2 hours away from here. So it's for the next few months I won't be able to access any of my terrain and most of my miniatures. So yeah, that's nice. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to click the like and the comment. Also subscribe to see more of builds like this, and share it with your friends so that they can also learn a few things from us, from our community. Yeah, thanks and bye.